The storm had driven them to the island. They hadn't planned to make landfall, but the winds left them no choice. As the ship approached the shore, the crew noticed something unsettling. The waves seemed to whisper secrets. The sands glistened under the dim light, but it was not the sheen of the moon. It was something darker, almost malevolent. As they anchored and set foot on the beach, a sudden chill ran through the air. The island felt alive, as if it was watching them. The captain, always the bravest, was the first to dismiss their fears, urging them forward. But with each step, the whispers grew louder, more insistent, and now the crew could make out words, promises of treasure buried deep, and warnings of dangers unseen. As night fell, a thick fog rolled in, swallowing the island in a blanket of darkness. The crew, that were hardened by years at sea, found themselves trembling. They'd built a fire, but the flames offered little comfort. Shadows danced at the edge of the light, and the whispers continued, now more like the murmurs of the dead. Morning brought little relief. As the fog lifted, one of the crewmen found something half buried in the sand, a map. But this was no ordinary map. It was tattered and old, its ink faded and its edges worn. The captain examined it closely, his eyes narrowing at the sight of the strange symbols scrawled across it. It was clear the map led to something hidden deep within the island. But there was something unsettling about it, a feeling that they were not meant to find whatever it led to. Still, the lure of treasure was too great to resist. As they ventured inland, the island seemed to shift around them. Paths they had walked moments ago now twisted into new directions. The forest was dense and oppressive, the trees gnarled and twisted as if in agony. Strange sounds echoed through the foliage, and the sense of being watched never left them. The map grew hotter in the captain's hand as they drew closer to the heart of the island. But with each step, the unease among the crew grew. They were not alone on this island, and whatever dwelled here did not welcome visitors. Their journey brought them to a clearing where the remnants of an old village stood. The structures were ancient, made of wood so old it had turned to stone. In the center of the village was a large stone altar, stained with something that looked suspiciously like blood. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, but the captain was undeterred. He approached the altar where the map indicated something was buried. As he began to dig, the whispers returned, louder now, almost a scream. The others held back, but the captain, driven by greed or madness, continued. Finally, he unearthed a chest, its wood rotted but its iron bindings still intact. But as he pried it open, the wind howled through the village, and the ground beneath them trembled. Inside the chest lay not gold or jewels, but bones, ancient, cursed bones. The crew recoiled in horror, realizing too late that they had disturbed something that should have been left alone. The ground cracked, and from the earth rose shadows, phantoms of the past, doomed to roam the island forever. Night fell as they retreated back to the shore, but the island was not done with them. The ship, which had seemed their only escape, now appeared different. It floated eerily on the water, its sails tattered, its wood aged and decayed. The crew hesitated to board, but they had no choice. The island behind them was far more terrifying. As they set sail, they realized something was terribly wrong. The ship moved, but the island remained in sight, as if they were trapped in a circle of endless water. The air grew colder, and a thick mist enveloped them. The whispers returned, now joined by the distant cries of lost souls. And then they saw them, figures on the ship that had not been there before. Ghostly sailors, their faces twisted in eternal anguish, drifted through the decks. The crew tried to steer the ship, but the wheel turned on its own, leading them further into the unknown. They had become prisoners of the cursed vessel, with no escape in sight. Days turned into nights, and the ship sailed on, aimless and lost. The crew was dwindling, their numbers thinned by fear and the unseen horrors that plagued them. Each night, one of them would vanish, leaving behind only a faint whisper in the wind. The captain, once so sure of himself, now teetered on the edge of madness, muttering about the treasure and the curse they had unleashed. The crew began to turn on each other, suspicion and paranoia taking hold. But the real threat was not each other, it was the island, or rather, the spirits that inhabited it. The ship was haunted, cursed to sail forever with the souls of the damned. The crew could no longer tell where the island ended and the ship began. The boundary between the living and the dead was blurring, and they were caught in the middle, trapped in a nightmare with no end in sight. One night, under the light of a blood-red moon, the crew faced their final horror. The wraiths that had haunted them emerged in full force, their forms shifting and menacing. They were the spirits of the island's original inhabitants, wronged and betrayed, and now they sought vengeance. The crew fought, but their weapons were useless against these spectral foes. The captain, desperate, tried to reason with them, offering the cursed bones as a plea for mercy. But the wraiths were beyond reasoning. They surrounded the crew, their cold, dead eyes filled with hatred. One by one, the crew was taken, their souls ripped from their bodies and added to the cursed ship's crew. The captain was the last to fall, his final scream swallowed by the wind. The ship, now fully manned by the dead, turned back toward the island, where it would wait for its next victims. The island, still shrouded in mist, remained a dark and foreboding presence on the horizon, a place of eternal torment for those foolish enough to seek its hidden secrets. With the blood moon still casting its eerie glow, the island stood silent, as if waiting. The ship, now a ghostly vessel, returned to its dock, its new crew eternally bound to its cursed fate. The whispers that had once haunted the living now belonged to the dead, a warning to any who might dare to land on these shores. The island, once just a rumor among sailors, became a legend, a place where the line between life and death was thin, and where greed led to damnation. No one would ever find the treasure the crew had sought, for the true curse of the island was not the bones or the wraiths, it was the endless, inescapable doom that awaited all who ventured there. And so, the island remained, hidden in the mists, waiting for the next ship to be lured to its shores, where the cycle of horror would begin anew. The story begins on a stormy night when a weathered pirate captain stumbles upon an old, tattered map. This map, stained with blood and ink, is said to lead to an immense treasure buried deep within the heart of a cursed island. The map is rumored to have been passed down by generations of pirates, each one meeting a grisly end before claiming the fortune. As the captain examines the map, he notices strange symbols and ancient warnings scribbled along the edges. Despite the ominous signs, greed overtakes his caution, and he decides to embark on the perilous journey. The crew is skeptical, for they have heard tales of this cursed treasure, but the promise of riches is too tempting to resist. As the captain gathers his crew, the ship's lanterns flicker ominously, and a cold breeze whispers through the sails. The waves whisper secrets in a language only the sea knows, filling the crew with an uneasy feeling. Each night, the wind carries the sound of distant voices, as if the spirits of the dead are warning them to turn back. The nights grow darker and colder as they sail further into uncharted waters, and the crew begins to sense they are being followed. Unease spreads among them, and they start seeing things that shouldn't be there, shadowy figures darting just out of sight, strange lights flickering beneath the waves. The captain brushes off their concerns, but deep down, even he feels the weight of something unnatural pressing down on them. The crew's fears are realized when they encounter a ghostly ship in the dead of night. The vessel emerges silently from the fog, its sails tattered, and its deck seemingly deserted. The ship appears to be from a bygone era, covered in barnacles and seaweed, as if it has been drifting for centuries. The pirate crew hesitates, torn between curiosity and terror. The captain, driven by his desire for the treasure, orders them to board the ship in search of clues. As they explore the ghost ship, they'd find evidence of a long-dead crew, rotting uniforms, rusted weapons, and skeletal remains. But it's not the dead they should fear. The spirits of the crew seem to linger, and soon, the living pirates feel the cold touch of invisible hands and hear the moans of the damned. The ghostly ship seems to pulse with a malevolent energy, as if it resents the intrusion of the living. The fog thickens as the pirate ship continues its journey, wrapping the vessel in a blanket of gray so dense that even the ship's lanterns struggle to cut through it. The crew's nerves are frayed, and they begin to hear footsteps and whispers echoing through the mist, though no one can see who or what might be causing them. Paranoia spreads like a virus, and the men start to turn on each other, suspecting that some unseen force is playing tricks on their minds. The captain tries to keep order, but the crew's fear of what lurks in the fog becomes overpowering. Strange, twisted shapes appear at the edge of their vision, only to vanish when looked at directly. The boundaries between reality and nightmare blur as the fog tightens its grip on their sanity. In a desperate attempt to navigate the cursed waters, the captain uncovers a relic from the ghost ship, a compass with a needle that spins wildly, pointing not to the north, but towards something unknown. The crew is wary of the object, believing it to be cursed, but the captain insists on using it, convinced it will lead them to the treasure. As they follow the compass's erratic guidance, the ship seems to veer off course, drawn towards the very heart of the curse. The crew grows more fearful, noticing how the compass's needle points not to land or ridges, but towards the most treacherous and ominous parts of the ocean. The captain, blinded by greed, ignores their pleas to throw the cursed object overboard. The deeper they go, the more the crew feels the oppressive weight of unseen forces pulling them toward their doom. The journey reaches its climax as the pirate ship arrives at the coordinates marked by the cursed map and compass, a massive, yawning abyss in the ocean where the water is as black as the void. The air is thick with an unnatural stillness, and the crew can feel the malevolence that radiates from the depths below. As they peer into the abyss, they see what appears to be the ruins of an ancient city, submerged and forgotten. The treasure, they realize, lies within these ruins, but so too does something far more sinister. The captain orders the crew to lower a boat and descend into the darkness, driven by his obsession. But as they descend, the sea comes alive with horrors, tentacled creatures, ghostly apparitions, and the spirits of those who perished seeking the same cursed treasure. The abyss seems to reach up, pulling them down into its eternal grip. In the end, it is unclear whether the treasure was ever real or just a lure to draw more souls into the abyss, where they would remain trapped forever, just like the countless others before them.